All right, this week on the latest episode of The Big Show, we're going to spend a lot of time for over the next 60 minutes talking about superhero films, superhero content, all leading to our review of the Marvel like epic cinematic journey, Deadpool and Wolverine. We'll have that and a whole lot more on the latest episode of Keeping It Real with Film Gordon. Let's go.
Experience life through the eyes of a true film addict. Keeping it real with Film Gordon.
Keeping it real. Keeping it real with Film Gordon. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real with Film Gordon. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real with Film.
All right. Welcome to the latest episode. Keeping It Real with Film Gordon. I am Tim Gordon. I am joined by the one, the only Charles Kirkland Jr. Charles, what's going on, man?
Skibbity dibbity. How's it going?
All righty. I'm just gonna ignore you, man. Everything is good on my end, man. You straight?
I'm good. It's a great day in the neighborhood. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning is finally streaming on Prime and Paramount if you want to watch it. So, lots of stuff is happening. We got a new presidential candidate. Everything is great. What's going on?
Well, sir, we try on this show to stay within the confines of entertainment. I'm not really trying to go outside that confine because we are Switzerland as it relates to politics on air, even though we have very kind of like we're kind of locked into our own personal views. We keep it about entertainment here. We keep it about the movies, about television, about stuff that we all can get along.
Well, you can't tell me that this presidential stuff is not entertaining. If nothing else, it
Okay.
has been a little
And
entertaining.
once again, I try to rein it in and you don't take the bait. So let me just transition on.
Okay.
So
Oh,
as
like I said, like I
Charles,
said
we're not
before,
doing this, man. Don't
like,
know. We're not
like I
doing
said
this.
before, Mission Impossible is on streaming now.
Thank you. That's great, man. There's a bunch of stuff that's on stream. Thank you, Charles Kirkland. Otherwise, man, we got a couple. We got a lot of things coming up, man, that we could we're not going to necessarily brush up and talk about them, but things that are worth a mention. Like a lot of our colleagues are in San Diego this week for Comic-Con, which is actually back for the first time in 5 years. And that's a lot of that is pandemic strikes. So, for all of our colleagues that are out there that are in the studios that are going to be coming out, bringing out news about what's going on in comic world, both on television, streaming platforms, and in films, Charles. So that's something to look out for. Have you seen or heard anything? Because I know you follow the doings in Hall H a lot closer than I do.
Well, by the time we air this show, they'll already have had the Deadpool and Wolverine junket, which the premiere that they're doing on Thursday. But Kevin Feige is also supposed to speak at Hall H today, a little later on today, and that's the big reveal of everything that Marvel is going to be doing for the next couple of years.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk a little bit about that, man, because I don't have exactly what he's going to say today, but some advanced word on some other stuff that they have leaked out. So we'll talk about that. The other thing is that everybody is preparing, believe it or not, we're about 6 weeks away from the Toronto International Film Festival, about a month away from Telluride, and about between maybe a month and a half away from Venice as well, which signals for us, Charles, the beginning of award season, because these are the films. So, it's funny. We talk about this a lot on the show, that the calendar is divided into two parts, right? So you have the early part of the year, which is Sundance, Berlin, South by, which happens, first quarter, January, February, and March. Tribeca used to be a part of that, but Tribeca moved from April to now June. So in June, you've got Tribeca, ABFF, and the Light Rail Film Festival. And then you get to the fall. Now, I mean, I'm not making it up. I mean, I put our festival in there. We're part of that kind of mid.
As you should, because it's a major festival.
So yeah, so now we're about to come down the home stretch, and I know that there's several films. One, and I'm not sure, and I think we should bring this up. The piano lesson is going to play at TIFF this year. Now it's going to premiere at Telluride in a month, which means, Charles, if you're leaving earlier than Tuesday, you might miss it because you're going to probably play it. You know how Toronto has a hard, fast rule that anything that premieres at Toronto opens over that opening weekend, right? Usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? Or Sunday. If you premiere your film at another festival and they bring it to Toronto, that's more like a Monday, Tuesday sort of a premiere. So, Charles, I was ready this year. I'm staying until Wednesday because I am because they got me last year. I was walking out the door. We saw Origin last year, but I didn't get a chance to see it when Ava DuVernay came into town because she came into town when we were leaving.
Right.
So now, are you staying? How late are you staying this year? Are you leaving Tuesday?
It's like we are of the same mind because I am leaving on Wednesday as well.
Watch this. And why are you leaving on Wednesday, Charles?
Because last year I found out that I was missing a lot by leaving on Tuesday.
Watch this. Watch this. I promise you, we didn't talk to each other about this. But yeah, that's what I figured out last year. I was like, I'm not gonna miss out because they were playing a lot of premieres on Tuesday last year, and I was leaving.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll fix you. So now TIFF is going to get smart. They're going to be like, oh, they starting to say to Wednesday. We're going to start moving stuff to Thursday. I'm like, nah, you can have it if you staying that long. Nah. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to Toronto. I always love being up there. It's a beautiful city. From a festival standpoint, if you're talking about major festivals. Now, I will admit, Charles, that I've never been to Berlin. I've never been to South by. Tribeca, to me, I've never been to Tribeca, but I've heard the stories from people, colleagues who've gone to Tribeca about how spread out it is. Sundance is similar in that regard. Toronto is just a dream. Everything in 2 blocks, man. It's just a great festival because you got the Scotiabank, which has 24 screens. I forget what street it's on, but it's 2 blocks away from King Street. If you come out of Scotiabank, and you want to get back to the TIFF Lightbox or any of the premieres, it's 2 blocks that way. Plenty of food in Toronto, plenty of retail shopping. I usually shop. Charles, I told you the story last year. Matter of fact, I don't have it here. I was gonna hold up my
that bag.
My Timbuktu. I went to the Timbuktu store, and I'm letting them know I'll be back, yo, because when you're an American and you come into Canada, man, that dollar was strong last year. I was able to do a lot of shopping in Toronto, so I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
That wasn't politics. That was shopping. That was retail.
This is not entertainment, sir. We're not talking about
I know, sir. I got some good deals up there. So I'm looking forward to TIFF, not just for the food, not just for the shopping, but there's usually great films that are up there. And there's also great fellowship because there are a lot of critics that are in Toronto every year. So, T.T. Stern Enzi, who's a good friend of our show, and of course of both Charles and I, he's going to be there with his crew, and the other crews are going to be there, man. So I'm hyped for Toronto this year because, again, Charles, it seems like this year we're not dealing with any strikes. We're not dealing with any pandemic issues. It feels like it's the first time that we're back at Toronto like in 5 years. Like this is the first time everything is normal. Same thing as at Comic Con is the same thing at TIFF.
Well, I learned my lesson also. I'm staying till Wednesday, but I don't have a an apartment on the outskirts of town this year this time either. I am like 5 minutes walk from the light box. So I'm right in the middle of everything and I'm happy.
Well, I was told last year. So let me give you guys a little context at home because you see me laughing and Charles understands why I'm laughing. The first 2 years I went to TIFF, we stayed at my significant other's cousin house, which is about 20 minutes away. So it was a nice subway right around the corner. So it was really nice and convenient getting into that entertainment district, as they call it, where TIFF takes place. But leaving late at night, and knows this from last year. I never forget. I went one year, and I think it was the last year, and I was like, I got to be closer. I went to see Reggie Hudlin's Sydney, right? His the premiere of his doc, and Tyler Perry was there, Oprah Winfrey. And the reason why I bring this up is because it extended the time of this movie, which was already late, to even later. So I think I got out of there about 1 o'clock in the morning, and they were showing The Fabelmans at 8 o'clock, and I was like, yeah, that's not going to work because by the time I get home, get into bed, and get maybe 4 hours of sleep, and then have to get up and turn, I was like, no. So I said, to Charles's point, I need to be closer. So last year I was so close. And I wasn't rubbing it in anybody's face, but
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were. You
no,
definitely.
I was literally like 2 minutes from the light box, like 2 minutes either direction from on one of those venues. And it was so cool because I remember me and Stephanie Philo, she was in Toronto. We were hanging out. I think we went out and had like a midnight hang where we would just hang out. I was like, it doesn't matter what time I get back. I'm only 2 minutes away when I'm ready. So this year, Charles, I will admit, you may be closer to me. I think I'm 7 minutes away walking this year, where last year I was like 2, right? But I waited too long, so I didn't get the spot. But I'm still like relatively close, and you gotta be for TIFF because there's so much activity, so many things to do. There are parties that we went to last year. I remember Charles, it was so funny, and I'm gonna let you tell a story about Coleman Domingo last year when he was sitting there having dinner at a restaurant, and Charles walked in and was like, "Yo, man, Coleman down the street. Where? Let's go." We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun last year. Matter of fact, y'all got into some parties I didn't get into. I was a little salty behind that because y'all were at the party. I was like, I'm downstairs. Where's the party? So we'll figure it out this year. But yes, so TIFF is coming up in 6 weeks. And once TIFF happens, Charles, you know what happens after that? There's Middleburg. We've got to get prepared for voting at the end of the year. And you got Black Reel Awards, you got Oscars, you got Golden Globes, you got Celebration of Black Cinema. You got a whole lot of stuff that happens in our world. So having said that, it's something to look forward to. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, I was going to mention that party that one of those parties that you didn't get into was my connection for my room this year. So I met a guy at that party with Danielle, and he was like, "Yeah, I got a spot right over here." I'm like, "Word!" So yeah, I got his digits and we hooked up, and so I'm staying over there this year, right in the middle of the Toronto International Film Festival.
Got you. Look at you. All right. Well, that's good because I was nervous for you last year because you were like, "Yeah, man, I'm going home." I was like, "Man, that's a long." That's a long. What were you
You know
about
what?
25 minutes away?
It was like 25 minutes, but again, using the subway and everything, it wasn't a bad ride. It was just that it was long, and you had to plan to leave, and you couldn't hang out like you wanted to. So yeah, I'm glad to be in the heart.
Bro, look them, but I give Toronto some credit. You talking about some clean subways and some super nice people. I remember
Oh yeah.
somebody stepped on me by accident and apologized to me profusely. I was like, "Sir, it's okay." No, 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 sir. They're very nice in Canada.
They are extremely nice. They are.
Wow.
Yes.
I was like, man, I was standing there. You know how you and here in America, where especially in DC, when you riding the metro and you bumping into people and people like,
Mm.
in Canada, they're like, "You're fine.
Oh, you're okay. It's all right.
I'm
We're all
good.
good. We're all good.
We like you, Toronto." All right, man. So let's jump into it, man. We 13 minutes into the episode, man, and we're gonna talk a lot about Deadpool and Wolverine, which I think, yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it right now. We have a lot to say about this movie, but let's talk about some other news that's coming out. And one of the things, Charles, I'm not sure if you've seen this yet. They've shared the first photo of the cast of the Fantastic Four. Right, they're about to start going into production over in London to make this film. Of course, it's slated to drop July of next year. Um, Marvel, you and I have done enough shows over the last several years, right? Because after the end of Phase 3, when Marvel was up here, right, the end of with Endgame, and the end of that chapter, Marvel was riding high, man, and then came the pandemic, the over abundance of all these different shows they were putting out on their streaming platform, the movies that they were pushing back, and then they weren't connected, and Marvel was getting black eye after black eye for about 3 years. Am I lying, Charles?
No, you're quite
I mean,
right.
I think the lowest point, Charles, and tell me if I'm wrong, the lowest point might have been Ant-Man Quantumania.
Mm,
I remember coming out of
mm.
Ant-Man Quantumania going, that was not good at all. It was like an Ant-Man film, but it felt like Ant-Man was riding in the back seat for the whole movie that Jonathan Majors was driving. I mean, am I wrong, Charles? Or do you see
Oh,
another low that I'm missing?
I think Eternals was my low point. I think that was the one
Ooh.
where I was like, ooh, man, what are they doing? Yeah, yeah.
You
I was,
realize before you said that, like nobody had even thought about the Eternals. Like that actually happened. That's a real thing. The Eternals.
yeah. I had to bring that back to memory. That was the low point for me, man. When that, whew.
So let
And
me
see,
ask you a question.
because Ant-Man had a little something to do with the rest of the universe, so you kind of work with it. But Eternals was just like, what are we watching? What is this? What is all this for? What are we doing? What are we doing, Marvel? What are we doing?
Bruh, man, that's rough, man. Whoa, ooh. Yeah, and there's a couple more of these movies, man. So
Oh yeah,
let me ask you another question. The low on the streaming platform side. Now, this is interesting, right? I want to say the one show they put up, and I can't even remember the full title of it. Um, Moon Knight.
uh,
Moon Knight to me, I was so disconnected. And there were other shows, but that one I was really disconnected. Then the other one, I thought She-Hulk was sort of fun, but and the fact that it had the Hulk in it on a couple of episodes, I thought made it nice. I thought Hawkeye was pretty decent. Yeah, Moon Knight,
yeah.
and maybe Secret Invasion was another one.
Oh
Where
yeah.
it's like, I mean, Charles, what about you on the streaming platform side? Do you agree, or do you have another show that Disney put out or Marvel put out?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm a big, I'm a big comics fan. I love my Marvel universe. Moon Knight is a revered character of mine, and I just don't think they did a really good job of telling the Moon Knight story on the series. And just again, it had no relevance to anything else that we were seeing, and so we had no framework to put it in. And like, where is Moon Knight going with it? Was he going to be an Avenger? Why are we watching this story? And so I really think that they kind of dropped the ball on Moon Knight. Yeah,
Oh,
that would be my lowest point.
oh, and
I enjoyed She-Hulk because She-Hulk is like the Deadpool, the female Deadpool, where she just cracks jokes and has fun. And
right.
I could ride with that. But yeah, Moon Knight was just hard to
Oh, I
watch.
forgot one, Charles. So if I talked about Quantumania being my low, the Ant-Man one. You mentioned which one?
The Eternals.
The Eternals. let's not forget the Marvels. Another one. Look at Charles. Ooh.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Bruh.
yeah,
So when I say Marvel had a bunch of black eyes, man. So we're in phase what now? Is it phase five?
we're phase 5. Yeah,
Yeah, phase
hopefully,
four we should call that phase forgettable. That's what
yeah.
phase four was. Is there anything out of phase four outside of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that you want to move forward with? And you can't even move forward with Guardians because they've done their trilogy of films and they could possibly come back, but James Gunn is now gone. He's across the street. So, James, and I trust James Gunn. I mean, you like that across the street. He's across
Yeah, yeah.
the street. And you can't get him to come back. So, Charles, have we seen the last of the Guardians in the MCU?
I think we've seen the last of them as an entire group. We may see something with them separately. We may get a Star-Lord film or something, Star-Lord and Thor or something, maybe. Who knows? But and don't count James Gunn out. I mean, if the word is that the Russo brothers are coming back to do the Avengers, so if things get bad enough, Marvel might just do what they have to do.
Sir.
They
Yes,
might just
there's
do
a
what.
big difference. Let me finish. There's a big difference in bringing the Russo brothers back, who don't run the opposing studio which James Gunn runs. They can't bring James Gunn back because James Gunn watch this. When you break up Apple and Microsoft can't bring back the head of Apple because it's a property over at Microsoft. You can't do it. And now,
All
if James
now,
Gunn leaves DC, yeah, you can then bring James Gunn back in some capacity, but you can't bring him back right now.
all I can say, well, there's like three big crossovers that happen in comics world. One is Secret Wars, which we're supposed to get. The next rumor is Avengers versus X-Men. We might get, but
Yeah,
there's
but
all
Avengers and X-Men are in the same universe.
yeah, but there's always the Marvel versus DC. There's been lots of comics where they've interacted, had these Elseworld crossovers where they meet each other. And that might be one of the reasons why James Gunn would be perfect to come back on a Marvel project when you do a DC versus Marvel.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna fall back and play my position because I'm not the dude that read these comics, and I will respect the fact that you have this knowledge. But let me explain, and this is the same thing. So humor me with this one, Charles, because I just want you to kind of talk me through this. Before Disney bought back or bought, merged with 20th Century Fox, and they got all these characters back, right? They were able to work something out where Spider-Man was sort of licensed and they worked it out. So yes, I get that, right? Because that was a part of the Marvel sort of fabric and they needed him back in order to help tell these stories. So they worked that out. I don't see now, the only thing that makes sense is that James Gunn has an existing relationship with Kevin Feige because of the work that they've done with him coming in to direct the whole Guardians trilogy, right? I think that the biggest problem you're going to run into for what you just said, which I think would be economically a great idea, would be how do we split the pie of money? Because
Right.
Marvel's coming to the table and they're saying we're bringing our characters, our IP to the table. And then, of course, DC brings Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They're bringing that IP. That's a huge movie, right? So we got to figure out how we take the pot of money and whose ideas are going to be. Do we work collaboratively? Like, is that an effective way to tell a story? How do we position this? I don't know. I mean, I think it's a great idea. And I think now that Disney has gotten back all these amazing characters, which we will talk a little bit about later, or actually, we won't talk about it because we're going spoiler free. We won't talk about it. But as a comic guy, I wish I could have sat next to you when we saw Deadpool and Wolverine because there was so much stuff like, and this is what pissed me off, Charles, and I hate to use the P word on the show. I didn't need to know any of the surprises that are in this thing. I just wanted to be able to watch the movie and be like, oh, snap. Ooh, ooh, no, not, oh. That's what I think that's what I want for the audience who goes to see Deadpool and Wolverine. But you got so many people, Charles, that got to be in the know. We got to tell you this is the rumor. Nah, we didn't need all of that, man. But yeah, I like I like where you're going with this. I just don't know from an IP perspective how you're going to be able to pull off something like that, man. Really, I don't know.
I have no idea how they would do it either. But man, if they could figure it out, it'd be a watershed moment for comic book like
I love
myself.
Charles, a watershed moment. Uh,
Also, I know we're going to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine later on, but I was of the opinion at some point in time I was just going to have to stop watching trailers and just wait for the movie. And so as I did that, I found myself being a lot happier about watching the film than maybe you were because I didn't know about a lot of this. I closed my ears to a lot of the people who were talking about what could be happening in the movie and what did. So yeah.
yeah, man. Well, I'm gonna tell you, man. I knew it was funny because one of the big surprises I knew about, but I didn't know about them all, right? And
Yeah.
I thought what was really funny because there's a great scene where there's a reveal of like some of these special folks that you don't know that are in the film. And the way they did it, I thought it was really cool because I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, no. So I had a lot of fun. Now, the thing is, though, and I would honestly say this, right? And I know we're not reviewing it, and I'll talk a little bit. I'll go more into this later on, Charles. I think there was so much what I call, we like to use the phrase inside baseball. There was some stuff that was happening that if you're not a comic fan, you really don't get the entire experience. Like, I don't experience it in a way that Charles did because Charles understands like all that stuff. I might have understood about 60%. So I was like, well, what's happening? So I brought my own comic interpreter with me who tried to help me through some of the stumbling parts that I had. But for the most part, it was just really cool because there were lots of Easter eggs of things that if you really it's the kind of movie you probably need to go back and watch like 2, 3 more times after it so you can catch all the stuff that they put in it. But it was
By the way, I know someone is doing it again,
doing what again?
going to see the film again.
Who? Oh, you talking about me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I got. Well, let me tell you what happened. I got a phone call from one of my close friends who told me, I know I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I went ahead and bought 4 tickets for us to go as a group to rewatch the movie. So I was like, oh, I'm good with that because I want to see this movie again anyway. I just thought it was a lot of fun. Man. I really did. So having said that, Charles, let's transition because we're about almost a half an hour into the show, and I know we're going to spend some time talking about this film. But let's talk about some of the things that Kevin Feige is talking about. So he said, and I don't know how you feel about this, he said, having Hugh Jackman come back as Wolverine in this film proves the one thing that they've been trying to figure out how to do for 5 years. And I think now with the multiverse saga, they can do it. Iron Man's coming back. They're going to bring Robert Downey Jr. back, man. Charles, I mean, they're going to bring him back. He said, and I quote, it could be done if great care is taken.
I'm a comic book fan, and I know almost nobody dies for real, forever. Nobody stays dead forever. There's
Nobody stays dead.
there's always a way to bring back somebody, and Deadpool and Wolverine is a proof of it. There's always a way. There's always a way.
It's funny. They made this really sensitive kind of end story called Logan back in 2017. And I rewatched Logan. And the tone of Logan was an extremely well done, great send-off for Hugh Jackman, right? I thought after Logan, we never see Wolverine again. I was like, he's a wrap. That's it. He had been doing this character for like 17 years at that point. I was like, wow, that was a tremendous send-off. And then we went to the movies earlier this week, and there he was back again. I'm like, wow. So my issue is, so let me ask you a question, Charles, because you just said nobody ever dies. Is there a scenario, a world where Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, can come back? Not the Captain America that we have now, but I'm talking about like the quintessential Steve Rogers Captain America. Is there a world that he comes back?
Of course there is. And it's called Secret Wars.
Wow. Okay. Is that the world that Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, could also be a part of?
Absolutely.
Wow. The only thing that makes me a little sad, and at some point Marvel's just gonna have to buck up and just do it. You got to recast Black Panther. Black Panther can't be left out. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely.
I love Chadwick Boseman. I think what Chadwick Boseman did was revolutionary. I thought it was epic. I thought the tone he set for T'Challa was great. It happens all the time. We've had like 19 Batmans. We've had like 26 Supermans. You can have, I'm being facetious, of course, but I'm saying, dude, cast somebody as Black Panther. I don't know who it is. Get another Black Panther.
Sure, we had a different in Bad Boys 4, we had a different wife for Marcus. So people get recast all the time.
You know how you explain it away? Is that in the multiverse, Black Panther's a different dude. It happens all the time in these movies. This is not hard. And at this stage, it's not disrespectful. We have honored Chad Boseman. He was extraordinary. It's so funny because I know I'm not supposed to bring this up, but there's a certain person who is going to be a nominee who posted a picture that the last tweet that Chadwick Boseman did was a tweet supporting this person then who was running for office, who is now running now. So that last tweet from Chadwick Boseman resurfaced of the Black Panther showing his support. So my point is that, and I know you guys were on this a lot earlier than I, because, our good friend in Chicago, Emmanuel Noizet, has been on the we need to recast T'Challa bandwagon for like 3 years, man. But now, I'm with him. I'm like, man, you need to recast the character. Now, 3 years ago, it was the wound was too fresh, man. We had just come out with Wakanda Forever. It wasn't the right time to talk about recasting. Here we are 2 years later. You literally recast Kang, Jonathan Majors. So if you can recast Kang, you can recast Black Panther.
Have they recast Kang? Have they really? Have we heard about
at some point? They're going to recast Kang. They're going to.
But they recasted the Hulk. And never even said a word about it. They went from Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo. and who knew? Who cares?
What about they went from Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle? And again, well, they did say something about that one because he wanted some money, and they was like, So yes, recast the character. You've done it before. You can do it again. But yeah, so all right. So then the other big news that came out from Kevin Feige, because he's been doing lots of issues or lots of conversations. They also talked about there was a certain song in the movie, which we're not gonna tell you what the song is, but you know how Ryan Reynolds had to go and ask for permission and show the scene that they wanted to use for this huge artist's song that's in the film. Charles, I know we still are about, you know, we're getting to a point where we're gonna have to review this movie, man, because it's like we're talking around it. So we're about 33 minutes in, almost 34 minutes in. Um, I can't even ask you a question because it goes into the review of the movie, man. All right, so I'm gonna leave it alone. We're not gonna review the movie yet. I'm determined that I want to save, as they proverbially say, the best for last. And there's no other movie that's opening this weekend. And if you were another movie, why would you? Because you know, there's people are only going to theaters this week to see one movie. And guess what, Charles? They're going more than once to see the one movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
speaking of going more than once, are you and your family headed out this weekend?
My son who didn't go with us on the other night, it has a plan to go with a group. And so we said, well, forget you. We're going as a family without you. So we're going. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to see it. We may end up seeing it 3 times before the weekend is over.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And it's so funny because I went before it screened earlier this week. I rewatched, which had nothing to do with this film, Deadpool 2. And when I say it really had nothing to do with, there was no tie-in other than there's some people in that film that might be in this film. So, and then I rewatched when I came home from the screening, I rewatched Logan, right? Which again, the only thing it has in common is that the guy that starred in that movie co-starred in this one. But I love, you know, I love the fact that, and which I think is really smart, that Marvel always has a way when they're telling the stories that there's certain, if you've watched enough of these movies, we call it institutional knowledge, right? Like there's enough stuff, like even for me, Charles, that I'm a novice, right? I didn't read the comic books, but from watching, you know, almost 20 years of Marvel films and them telling these stories about all of these different universes and these special people, you picked up enough nuance. And here's the other key, right? You know, watching Marvel movies is one aspect of it, but watching superhero movies, whether it's DC, Sony, or Marvel, the Sony part helps you in this movie because there were so many of these characters that were not in the MCU, but their work was being displayed over years, like what Jackman was doing, what the X-Men was doing, and some other folks that we're not going to spoil it, because you thought I was going to spoil it there, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
There are other films that have played that were parts of the fabric of what Fox was doing back in the day with these Marvel characters that is brought to the forefront. And I think Marvel, if you're Kevin Feige right now, Charles, you got to be as happy as punch that you got everything in house right now. Is there any other character that Marvel, like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, created that's not in Marvel's hands right now? Is there any of them?
Well, no, not. I think. Well, I mean, Sony still has Spider-Man, but they got their hands on it. So, I mean, yeah, I think everything that we can think of is here now.
Okay, I wanted to ask you that question because that's key. So Spider-Man, they have access to. It's
right.
not like they can. I mean, they can do stuff with Spider-Man in the MCU, which I think is kind of cool. But outside of Spider-Man, they got everything else. Am I correct?
I mean, you know, Sony has that whole Spider-Verse, so you still, that's why you can have films like Venom and all that other Morbius and all that
I
stuff.
don't really care about
those are Marvel properties, but they just don't.
Mobius, don't care about those characters because you know why? Because Sony doesn't know what to do with them, right? And I say that because you watch the movies. They also have Madam Web too, right?
Right.
Yeah. My point exactly. You don't know what to do with any of those characters. You might as well, if you want those stories to be told properly, just give them to Marvel. I mean, I'm not saying that to be funny. Well, actually, I am saying that to be funny because Marvel doesn't hit on everything. But for the most part, they used to hit on everything. Well, maybe not. Nah, not really. They don't hit on everything, but they don't strike out as often. It's like we don't get a Venom in the well, actually you do get a we just finished saying you do get a Venom in the MCU. It's called Black Widow. Or the Marvels or the Eternals. I mean, okay. Wow. Never mind. Look.
But when it comes to the major characters, when it comes to the major characters, they get them right. So when you got your Captain America, your Iron Man, your Thor, your Spider Man, they're going to get those right. They're experimenting on these other titles, these smaller characters, and trying to see what they can get away with. And they just weren't getting away with Ant-Man or the Eternals or Black Widow and all that good stuff.
So Charles, I know we're almost 40 minutes in and we're gonna review momentarily, but I just want to ask a question because I have always been of the thought, and you guys, I will say you, Travis Hobson, Shireen Nicole, Julian Lytle, and folks who are really huge comic fans have educated me, right? Because for years I've always thought as a kid that DC had like the top end IP, right? When you got Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, you at the top of the food chain, the Flash, you got like these four mammoth characters, right? Now, Marvel, I've been told that Iron Man was like a C-level guy, like Spider-Man is like the top of the food chain, maybe the Hulk. But a lot of these characters, man, that Marvel has put out aren't like top shelf characters. Am I correct in that characterization?
Well,
I'm not
if
talking
you're
about
not,
with the films now. I'm talking about before as comic characters.
I mean, not too many DC properties ever have the recognition of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, yeah, these are
Well,
like,
Spider-Man, I remember as a kid because didn't they have an animated series? Spider-Man,
oh yeah,
Spider-Man.
they had a live action Spider-Man too when we were growing up. So yeah, Spider-Man might be one of the characters that that Marvel can say, oh yeah, we recognize as an A-list character. Yeah, Captain America, Iron Man,
Captain
the
America.
Hulk, all these guys were like, the middle of the pack as far as heroes go, and even in the Marvel universe. So, I mean, you would always talk about, well, what kind of superheroes does Marvel really have? And so we really haven't seen, except for maybe like the Scarlet Witch, who they still haven't gotten her all the powers that she can do out of her, but there are some significantly powerful characters in the Marvel universe that we have not seen yet. Uh, we got exposed to Hercules, and Hercules consistently kicked Thor's butt. Consistently, every time they meet up, Hercules is standing over his crumpled body because he's just powerful. So, and we've got people who are even more powerful than that inside the Marvel universe. The Fantastic Four is an A-list property, just like Spider-Man, which is why people have been clamoring to see the Fantastic Four for so long. We've seen so many other films that have been done of the Fantastic Four that have been
Not
stinkers,
good. Not good.
stinkers.
The three Fantastic Four films that I've seen. I saw the first one, then they did Silver Surfer, and then this reboot with Michael B. Jordan. They're 0 for 3. And I
Yeah.
think the big thing, and I know, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Charles. I was saying that one of the things that I read was that the latest iteration of the Fantastic Four, they know, right? They know that none of these films have worked. And they're like, Marvel has a really strong story. They got a really great screenplay. And they're like, they can't wait to do this. If Marvel nails the Fantastic Four, that's going to be huge. So I think part of what I'm going to bring it all the way back home before we review Deadpool and Wolverine, is that Phase Forgettable might be a thing of the past, because if we're in phase 5 now, how deep in 5 are we? Like, are we at the beginning of 5, the middle of 5?
I think that's why we want to hear what Feige has to say at Comic-Con, because we really don't know what has been shelved, what is really happening, where we're going with the rest of this phase. I think Marvel in phase 4 they got a little Tyler Perry-ish and just wanted to kick out stuff over and over and over. I'm glad that they're taking their time again and
Did you
starting to
say
develop
Tyler
stories.
Perry-ish? That's a good one. Wow. I had my mouth open. I did not expect that.
But yeah, so the work that the time that they're spending in developing the Fantastic Four tells me that they're taking this project seriously. That hopefully we shall see something of decency out of this film.
Well, again, man, I think any other property is the
Um,
X that X-Men one, which we haven't touched yet. That's going to be pretty interesting, man.
and the thing about the X-Men though is that the X-Men movies before weren't really bad. They were actually decent films. So Marvel's got to really up the ante to bring X-Men down, do them well, do them better than what we've seen before.
Yeah, you're right. Now I give you that. I mean, I didn't have a problem with a lot of the X-Men films. I like I mean, there's a couple of them that you held your nose, but for the most part, those things were good. All right, man, Charles, we about 45 minutes into the show, and it is time, brother. We've been putting this conversation off all show. I say, let's do it right now. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, it's time for us to talk movies. And there's only one movie. We've been talking about it. We've been talking around it. We ain't want to give you too much, man. Charles got an audience behind him. I feel like you're doing a live show where people sitting there like, all right. So, Deadpool and Wolverine. I want to give you the whole skinny on this one. Oh, no, let me take it back. I'll do this. All right, so here we go. All right, Deadpool Wolverine tells a story of Wolverine who is recovering from his injuries when he crosses paths with the loudmouth Deadpool. They team up to defeat a common enemy in Deadpool versus Wolverine. Now, this movie here, this is the 34th film, Charles, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it is a sequel to both Deadpool and Deadpool 2, directed by Sean Levy, from a screenplay he wrote with Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Zeb Wells. Both Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman comes back and makes his entry into the MCU to star, respectively, as Deadpool and Wolverine, and Emma Corrin, Marina Baccarin, Rob Delaney, Leslie Uggams, Aaron Stanford, and Matthew McFadden are all in supporting roles. Now, let me take it a little deeper before we start talking about it. In the film, the Time Variance Authority pulls Deadpool from his quiet life and sets him on a mission to save his universe, colliding with Wolverine from another universe in the process. Charles Kirkland, I'm going to start first, man. All right. I went into this as high as you can be. And when I say high, I don't mean like on drugs, but high in excitement. That I knew from the way they had been putting these trailers out, and the anticipation of the story, loving the tone. I wanted to figure out immediately if they would be able to get the tone of this film right. And Deadpool, when it was at the other place across the street, they nailed the tone. And I was like, will Marvel go there with the tone of what Deadpool was? Marvel, the New York Yankees, the pop superstars. Would Marvel go to an R-rated hard film? Charles, yes, they do. They lean into this movie. The opening sequence alone is worth the price of admission, which I'm not going to tell you what they do. But in introducing Deadpool to the MCU, this is a very different Marvel film that I don't think we've seen anything from a rawness, a language standpoint, violence. Charles, am I wrong? Have we seen anything that mirrors what Deadpool and Wolverine is?
This was more Deadpool than Deadpool 1 and 2 were that Fox did. Marvel said, "Oh yeah, hold this. We can point all the way
Oh
in."
man, they leaned in. All right, so okay, so that's good. So again, of course, Hugh Jackman, who we literally just talked about several minutes ago, his character had been retired since 2017. But to Charles Kirkland's point, nobody ever dies in the comic world. So again, and I'm trying to talk around this because Charles, I want you to do the same thing. I want this to be as spoiler free as possible because I want people to get the surprises in the film. And let's just say that these two have a deep history, which Charles could probably elaborate a lot more than I can. And the two of them connect in this screenplay, which I think uh, is more about this is service to the fanboys. This movie is a service film, right? It's a part of the story and it's an introduction, but it's a service film, but it is also important as a film to introduce a different tone to the MCU. It's also a way to introduce the world of mutants because Wolverine is a mutant, and now we've played around with it in some films, like you talked about Scarlet Witch, and there was some other films that they had access to those characters. Now all bets are off because they got access to everybody. And now that we can really lean into the story, I thought it was smart, Charles, to take us back to Loki, to the time variance subplot, use that, which was hugely popular when it aired on Disney Plus. Give it a context or a world where everybody is sort of familiar with what the TVA is, but use the TVA as a way, or I'm not gonna say as a way, as a vehicle to introduce a bunch of characters that you might not have seen in the MCU. You might not have seen these characters in a long time, but boy, do they show up, and it is an enjoyable time, man. I'm just gonna say, and I'm gonna wrap mine up because I want to give you some time to get in here. It's really hard and difficult to talk about so many of the core scenes in this movie because they have people that you really want people to be surprised about who they're gonna watch. But I just thought, man, that Ryan Reynolds, the attention to detail, the fact that they figured out a way not just to bring Hugh Jackman into the MCU, but to bring him in a way where he gets to shine as much as Ryan Reynolds gets to shine. I just thought it was a triumph. This movie I mean, I know we throw around stuff like it's the best movie of the year and that stuff. No, I'm gonna limit this to the MCU. This movie to me is like a top. We just said it's 34 MCU films. I'm almost would say this is a top five MCU film for me. This is the top five MCU film, and this is a world where we're talking about Endgame, Black Panther. This is a top five film for me. It really is. So, with that being said, Charles Kirkland, give the audience a little more without telling them about Deadpool and Wolverine.
All right, it needs to be said. Deadpool 1 and 2 were done by Fox.
Right.
And so when Disney acquired these characters from Fox, they had to treat them in a way that was respectful, but also let you know that they know what they have. And I think that they were very respectful. This film is actually a love letter, saying goodbye to Fox and what they had done, and thanks for the memories, and we're going to take it from here. And yeah, I think they upped the ante like 12 times past what Deadpool 1 and 2 were. And Marvel said, "Hey, this is our baby. We're going to have fun with it." And they had a lot of fun with this film. There's things that again, there are lots of cameos. You have no idea who you're going to see for real. I mean, there have been rumors about who's coming up in this film, but you really have no idea. You really have no idea. And when you get in there, you will be rolling in your seat going, "Oh, what? Hey!" And it's just there's sight gags that I mean, you have to watch this film at least twice, because there's some sight gags, there's some things that happen off camera, that not off center of the camera, that if you don't know what you're looking at, you're going to miss. So to the point where I'll even mention the Leafield's feet. I'm trying to imagine how many people saw that at
Who's
Easter
feet?
egg in Liefield's feet. Rob Liefeld was an animator who did a lot of Deadpool, X-Men, X-Force. He created a lot of that stuff. And one of the commentaries on Rob Liefeld was that he could not draw feet. And so it was hilarious that there was a store in the background that's called Liefield's Feet. And so it's just all these kind of things that are happening within this film that you see, and if you're a true comic book fan, you're going to enjoy every bit of it. If you're not a true comic book fan, and you're going to enjoy, it's enjoyable no matter who watches this film. There's a lot of violence, it's a lot of blood, it's a lot of gore, there's a lot of fights, and it's all good. It's all good because we're talking about two characters who can't really die, Wolverine and Deadpool. And so when they get to fighting and they get to fighting other people, who cares? It's all the brakes are loose. Just go at it. It's action on top of action, comedy on top of comedy. It's raucous. I mean, it's just fun. It's just the most fun I've had at the movies this year. And yeah, it's pushed Marvel to another level of creation, because I mean, you look at the films like the Avengers and Endgame and all those things. They're fun, but this is like a whole different level of fun because it's just silly and just it's just interesting how they can make a film that just they just don't care what they're going to do, that what they're going to say. We got an R
Right.
rating. Yeah, we're gonna use it. Every inch of that R rating we're gonna have fun with, and that's what they did in this film.
Let me just say before we get out of here that the person who I thought had some of the greatest lines in the screenplay was Leslie Uggams.
Oh, absolutely.
Leslie Uggams, if you don't know who she is, she's an esteemed actress. They put her in these Deadpool films, man, and in this one particularly, woo, I learned so many new drug references from listening to Leslie Uggams in this film. I was like, oh, that's clever. Oh, they had her saying some of the most ridiculous stuff out there. But I'm with Charles, man. That's why I said for me, it's a top 5 MCU film, and I love the MCU. So I think this new direction that they're gonna go in, and not I'm not gonna say it's a new direction. I think it's a new direction for Deadpool. It reminds me of what they should have been doing with Ant-Man, but Ant-Man's not Deadpool. Deadpool is different, and that's why I used to love these movies when Fox was making them, because I was like, man, Marvel ain't gonna do that. Marvel was like, hold this, man. We'll be right. So
I
Charles,
totally agree with you. Leslie Uggams is fantastic, and she's been having quite the career lately with American Fiction and Fallout and the previous 2 Deadpool movies. Yeah, she's continually doing her thing.
all right, Charles. So we got about a minute left, man. What are you giving this movie, man?
I gave it a solid A. The only reason why I didn't give it an A plus because it is, I mean, the language is horribly bad. I mean, this is not a film that you can take your little children to, so be careful with that. But
Oh,
other than that,
absolutely. Yeah, this is not a cute little regular Marvel film. They leaned into this. That did that R. Raunchy, raw. I gave it an A as well. Like I said, I can't quantify whether it's the best film of the year. It is easily the film that I was hooting and hollering like, oh dang, no, they didn't. I had a lot of fun. Matter of fact, I had so much fun. Don't be surprised by the time we come back next week, Charles. I'll be like, oh, I saw that movie like 4 times, man.
So what's your prediction? 100, 120, 130?
I think you go 150, man, because I think there's so much anticipation around this, and people have been waiting for a long time for this movie, man. So,
All
but let's
right.
get out of here, Charles, man. Like Charles, on behalf, or to the audience, on behalf of my co-host and good friend Charles Kirkland Jr., man. We tell you every week, please see something good at the movies. We did a whole show where we were trying not to review this movie for 60 minutes before we finally did it. Deadpool and Wolverine, if you like these films or the films of this genre, this is a movie for you. It's a grown-up superhero movie that's a movie of the moment. And I think it signals a new era for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, man. So we'll be back to recap next week, God willing. But on behalf of my brother, man, you guys take care, enjoy your weekend, and we are out, man. Peace.